Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you, when life gets tough, when the challenges seem insurmountable, where do you turn? Do you rely on your own strength? Do you look to those around you for help? What if I told you there's a different way, a path where your burdens could be lifted and your heart could find peace? I'm talking about giving it to God. So whatever you're facing today, whether it's a financial challenge, a health issue, a personal struggle, remember, you don't have to carry it alone. Give it to God. When you give it to God, you're not giving up. You're giving it over to the one who is more than capable, more than powerful, and more than willing to work on your behalf. It's not about doing everything yourself. It's about doing what you can and giving the rest to God, trusting that He's already working behind the scenes. When you give it to God, you are freeing yourself to live in faith, not fear. And there's nothing more powerful than that. You see, it's easy to think that we must carry every weight on our own. Society tells us to hustle, to strive, to work hard, and to never back down. But there's a secret strength in surrender. Giving it to God is not about weakness. It's about recognizing that there is a greater force at work, one that has always been there and will continue to guide you. It's about having the faith that you are not alone, no matter what you're facing. Faith and trust are two fundamental aspects of the human experience, especially when it comes to navigating the complexities of life. These concepts are not always easy to grasp, especially in a world that constantly pushes us towards self-reliance and independence. We are taught from a young age that we must work hard, make our own way, and solve our own problems. And while these principles are important, there is an equally vital truth that many overlook: the power of placing our faith in something greater than ourselves. In moments of struggle, when the weight of our challenges feels unbearable, the act of giving it to God is, at its core, a profound demonstration of faith and trust. Faith, in this context, is the belief that something beyond our understanding or control is at work. It's the trust that there is a higher power guiding our lives, even when we cannot see it, touch it, or fully comprehend it. This faith is not just about belief in a higher being, but also about believing that this being is actively involved in our lives, caring for us and working on our behalf. It's about letting go of the illusion that we are solely responsible for everything and acknowledging that there is a divine purpose at play, even in the midst of our trials. Trust, on the other hand, is the decision to rely on that faith, to choose to believe in the unseen. It's the willingness to surrender our own sense of control and allow God to take the reins. Trusting in God requires vulnerability because it means acknowledging that we cannot handle everything on our own, that we are not invincible, and that we need help. This is often a difficult truth to accept, especially in a society that celebrates individual strength and self-sufficiency. Yet the strength found in faith is not the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to open our hearts and minds to the possibility that we are part of a much larger, more intricate plan. When we give our struggles to God, we are making a choice to trust that He has a purpose for what we are experiencing. This trust is not a passive act, but an active decision. It's a choice to believe that God's plan for us is better than our own, that His understanding of our needs is deeper than our own comprehension. We might not always understand why certain things happen, why we face particular challenges, or why life sometimes feels so unfair. However, trusting that there is a greater purpose, even when we cannot see it, brings a sense of peace and hope that transcends the temporary hardships we face. One of the most significant aspects of this trust is the willingness to release control. We live in a world where control is often equated with power. We believe that the more control we have over a situation, the more secure we will feel. However, the reality is that there are many things in life that are beyond our control. Whether it's the outcome of a situation, the decisions of others, or even the state of our health, there are countless variables that we simply cannot influence. This realization can be daunting, and for many it breeds anxiety and fear. But when we give it to God, we are choosing to trust that His wisdom and timing are perfect, even when we cannot see the full picture. It's in this release of control that we find freedom to stop fighting battles we are not meant to fight alone, and to trust that God will guide us through. This faith and trust are not one-time decisions, they are ongoing practices. Trusting in God is not something that happens overnight. It's a daily commitment to surrendering our worries, our plans, and our fears to Him. In doing so, we allow ourselves to be shaped by His wisdom, to learn the lessons He has for us, and to grow in ways we never imagined. The more we trust in Him, the more we begin to see His hand in every part of our lives, guiding, protecting, and providing for us in ways that go beyond our expectations. It's not always easy, and it's not always immediate, but the peace that comes from truly trusting in God is transformative. This faith and trust also challenge us to look beyond our immediate circumstances. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day struggles and to focus solely on the problems we face. But when we choose to trust in God, we shift our perspective. We begin to see that our struggles are not the end of the story, that God is working in and through our challenges to bring about something greater. We start to realize that our faith is not just for the moments when everything is going well, but for the times when we are in the trenches, facing adversity. It's in those moments that our trust is tested and strengthened. It's in those moments that we learn to rely not on our own understanding, but on God's promises, which are unchanging and steadfast. Ultimately, faith and trust in God are not just about receiving blessings or answers to our prayers. They are about developing a deeper relationship with the Creator, one built on a foundation of love, respect, and surrender. By trusting God, we acknowledge that His love for us is unwavering, that He is always present, even in our darkest hours. And in that trust, we find a strength that is not our own, an inner peace that surpasses understanding, a sense of calm that anchors us in the storms of life. This is the power of faith and trust. It's not about having all the answers, but about believing that no matter what happens, God's plan is greater and His presence is enough. Faith isn't always about the grand moments of life. Sometimes it's about the quiet act of letting go, of trusting that your struggles are seen and understood, and that in His time, God will make a way. We often hold on so tightly to things that are out of our control, and we forget that the act of surrendering is an act of strength. It takes courage to step back and say, I trust You, God, to handle what I cannot. The act of surrender and release is deeply intertwined with the concept of giving it to God. In life, we often find ourselves holding tightly to what we think we can control, our desires, our goals, our relationships, and our challenges. We believe that by gripping tightly to these things, we ensure our success, stability, and security. But the truth is, the more we cling to control, the more we limit ourselves, our growth, and our capacity to experience peace. Surrendering to God is not a sign of weakness, but a powerful act of faith that involves releasing our need for control and trusting that God's plan is far better than anything we could orchestrate on our own. Surrender is an intentional act of letting go, but it's not a passive one. It's a conscious decision to acknowledge that we, as human beings, have limitations. We cannot solve every problem, predict every outcome, or manage every situation that comes our way. Our understanding is finite, and no matter how much effort we put into trying to shape our own future, we will inevitably encounter circumstances that are beyond our ability to control. By choosing to surrender, we are admitting that we do not have all the answers, and we are opening ourselves up to divine wisdom that far exceeds our own. In this release of control, we embrace a paradox. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up, but rather giving over. It's an act of offering our burdens, concerns, and desires to God with the understanding that He is not only capable of handling them, but has a perfect plan for how things will unfold. Letting go of the need to micromanage every detail of our lives allows us to step into a place of freedom. It frees us from the constant anxiety of trying to maintain control over outcomes that are often outside of our reach. Surrendering to God doesn't mean we cease taking action or making decisions, but it means we do so with a mindset of trust and humility, knowing that God is guiding us every step of the way. For many people, the idea of surrendering is challenging. We are taught from a young age that we must be self-sufficient, independent, and responsible for our own success. The world around us often equates surrender with failure or helplessness, but true surrender is not about being helpless or passive. It's about yielding to a greater power and recognizing that true strength is found in acknowledging that we don't have to do it all ourselves. In fact, the more we try to control, the more we isolate ourselves from the divine power that wants to work through us. Surrender is the opposite of resistance. It is an active choice to allow God to take the lead and trust that His will, though not always visible in the moment, is what is best for us. The release of control can be particularly difficult when it comes to our deepest desires, our goals, and our relationships. When we have a vision of how we want our life to unfold, it's easy to become fixated on the path we think we should take. We may even feel that we know what's best for ourselves and that any deviation from that path is a setback. However, surrendering to God means letting go of the need to have everything go according to our plans and trusting that God has a far better vision for us than we could ever imagine. It's in this surrender that we learn to let go of the fear of the unknown, knowing that God's timing is perfect and that His way is always better than ours, even when it doesn't make immediate sense. One of the most profound aspects of surrender is that it involves a release of fear. Fear is often what drives our need for control. We fear failure, uncertainty, and the possibility of things not going the way we hoped. But fear only serves to limit us. It keeps us from fully embracing the life God intends for us. Surrendering to God involves choosing faith over fear, believing that no matter what happens, we are secure in His love and care. It means stepping into the unknown with the confidence that God will provide, protect, and guide us, even when we cannot see the path ahead. When we release control and surrender our lives to God, we open ourselves to the possibility of transformation. We allow God to work in ways that we couldn't have predicted. Surrendering doesn't mean we become passive bystanders in our own lives. Rather, it means we become active participants in God's greater plan. It means aligning our will with His, allowing His wisdom and love to shape the decisions we make and the paths we walk. Surrendering is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that invites us to continually trust, let go, and open ourselves to the divine work happening within and around us. A key aspect of surrendering is that it allows us to experience peace, even in the midst of chaos. When we choose to give it to God, we stop fighting against the current of life. We stop struggling against what we cannot change and embrace the peace that comes from knowing that we are not in this alone. This peace doesn't come from the absence of challenges, but from the assurance that God is with us through every storm. It's a peace that transcends understanding, a calm that allows us to navigate life's ups and downs with confidence and trust. Surrendering to God also deepens our relationship with Him. It is through surrender that we learn to trust Him more fully, to recognize His presence in every aspect of our lives, and to understand that He is always working for our good. The more we surrender, the more we experience His grace and His love, which strengthens us and transforms us from the inside out. It is in these moments of surrender that we become more aware of His will and more attuned to the quiet whispers of His guidance. Ultimately, surrendering and releasing control to God is not about giving up on life or losing our individuality. Instead, it's about acknowledging that we are not alone in this journey and that we have a powerful ally in God. It's about finding the strength to let go, the courage to trust, and the wisdom to believe that when we give it to God, He will handle it far better than we ever could. And this is where prayer comes in. Prayer is not just a ritual, not just words spoken in times of need. It's an invitation to a deeper relationship where we acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, but we trust the one who does. Prayer is the tool that helps us let go of worry and step into the peace that comes from knowing we are in God's hands. Prayer is an essential part of the relationship we have with God, and it plays a crucial role in the act of surrendering our burdens and trusting in His guidance. When we give it to God, prayer becomes the medium through which we communicate our deepest concerns, desires, and struggles. It's not just a ritual or a routine, but a conversation where we speak openly and honestly with our Creator, and in turn, listen for His wisdom and direction. Prayer serves as both a tool for release and a means for gaining strength, reminding us that we are not alone and that God is actively involved in our lives, guiding us toward peace and understanding. At its core, prayer is a way to align ourselves with God's will. It's easy to think of prayer as a way to ask for what we want or to seek God's intervention in our lives. While it is true that prayer is an opportunity to express our needs, it is equally an opportunity to submit our will to God's. It's in this submission, this willingness to surrender our own desires, that we begin to understand the bigger picture that God has for us. Prayer shifts our focus from the limited scope of our human understanding to the vastness of God's plan. When we pray, we are invited to release our anxiety, to let go of the need for control, and to trust that God knows what is best for us, even when it doesn't align with our immediate desires or expectations. Through prayer, we also gain the strength to navigate the challenges and hardships that inevitably come in life. It's easy to become overwhelmed when we face struggles, whether they are emotional, financial, physical, or relational. These difficulties can leave us feeling helpless and alone, as though we are carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. However, in prayer, we are reminded that we do not have to bear this weight by ourselves. Prayer connects us to the divine source of strength, reminding us that God is our refuge and our strength, a constant help in times of trouble. It is in the act of praying, of seeking His presence, that we tap into a peace that transcends understanding. We may not always receive the answers we want immediately, but prayer gives us the courage to face our challenges with a renewed sense of hope, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. Prayer also serves as a reminder that we are not in control of the universe, and that's a good thing. As human beings, we often struggle with the need for control. We want to know every outcome, every detail, and we feel uncomfortable when things are uncertain or unpredictable. But through prayer, we acknowledge our limitations and our need for guidance from a higher. We recognize that while we can take actions to improve our circumstances, there are many things in life that are beyond our control. Prayer is a way of expressing our surrender to God, acknowledging that His will is far greater than our own understanding. This doesn't mean that we stop making efforts or taking responsibility for our actions, but it means that we trust that the outcome is in God's hands. In surrendering to God's will through prayer, we experience freedom from the pressure of trying to control everything, and instead, we learn to live in trust and faith. Moreover, prayer deepens our relationship with God. It's through prayer that we come to know Him more intimately. Just as any relationship is built on communication, our relationship with God grows stronger through the time we spend in prayer. Prayer is not meant to be a one-way conversation, but rather a dialogue. As we speak to God, we are also called to listen, to hear His voice in the stillness, to discern His guidance in our hearts. The more we engage in this communication with God, the more we begin to recognize His presence in our lives. It's in these quiet moments of prayer that we develop a deeper understanding of God's character, His love, His faithfulness, His mercy, and His wisdom. We begin to see that He is not a distant deity, but a loving Father who desires a close and personal relationship with His children. Another aspect of prayer is the way it helps us process and release our emotions. Life can be emotionally overwhelming, and when we face challenges or difficult situations, our feelings of fear, frustration, sadness, or anger can cloud our judgment and prevent us from thinking clearly. Prayer provides a safe space for us to express these emotions openly to God. There is no need to hide our feelings or put on a facade when we come to God in prayer. We can be honest about our struggles, our pain, and our confusion. In doing so, we not only release the burden of these emotions, but also allow ourselves to experience God's healing touch. God is not only interested in our successes and joys, but also in our pain. Through prayer, we open the door for Him to comfort us, heal us, and give us the peace that only He can provide. Furthermore, prayer brings clarity and guidance. When we are faced with decisions or uncertainties, prayer allows us to seek God's wisdom. Often we find ourselves at crossroads in life, unsure of which path to take or what decision to make. It is in these moments that prayer becomes a lifeline. By seeking God's guidance through prayer, we invite His wisdom into our decision-making process. God's guidance is not always immediate, nor does it always come in the form of a clear answer. Sometimes God's guidance comes through a feeling of peace, a sense of direction, or a shift in perspective. In praying for wisdom, we open ourselves to God's divine insight, which surpasses our own understanding. In summary, prayer is much more than just asking for help. It's a transformative process that shapes our relationship with God, strengthens our faith, and equips us to handle the challenges of life. When we give it to God, prayer becomes the bridge that connects our hearts to His. It is in prayer that we find comfort, clarity, strength, and peace. Through prayer, we release our burdens and invite God's presence into every aspect of our lives, trusting that He will guide us, protect us, and provide for us in ways we could never imagine. Prayer is the conversation that sustains us, the tool that empowers us, and the reminder that we are never alone in our journey. In conclusion, surrendering our burdens to God through prayer and trust is a transformative process that leads to peace, strength, and growth. It's an invitation to release the need for control and embrace the freedom that comes with knowing that God's plan is greater than anything we can imagine. Prayer is not just a way to seek God's help, but also a way to deepen our relationship with Him, align our will with His, and gain the strength to face life's challenges with confidence. When we give it to God, we acknowledge His presence in every aspect of our lives, trusting that He will guide, protect, and provide for us. As you embark on your journey, remember that surrendering to God doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over and allowing Him to lead you in the best way possible. Are you with me? Trust in His timing, His wisdom, and His love. Good luck as you move forward in faith, and may you find the strength to release your worries and give it all to God. Thank you for your time, and may you be blessed with peace, joy, and a deep sense of trust in the journey ahead.